Hello and welcome to a brand new episode. This one's going to be all in English because right now we are in Tallin and we're going to check out this almost 90-year-old submarine that survived World War II. The building is quite extraordinary.
Yes, it is. Well, it's over 100 years old. It was built in 1917 by the Russian Empire, and its main purpose was to house seaplanes.
This right here is the main character, I think.
Yes, of course. Our most famous exhibit, the submarine Lembit, yeah.
Is it 90 years old? A 90-year-old submarine?
Yes, so it will celebrate its 90th birthday next year. So it was built in 1936, and so next year it will be 90 years old.
Yeah. Where was it built?
It was built in England. The British were the best at that time in the 20th century. They were the best at building submarines, and also since they had helped Estonians in our War of Independence with their navy, then the Estonian head of state, when the Estonian government wanted to buy submarines, then they firstly went to the British, said, "Hey, we are looking for 2 submarines. Can you build them for us?" And the British they accepted the offer, and they built 2 submarines. They were exact copies of each other, but the other one went missing during the Second World War and hasn't been found.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's probably somewhere at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, but where exactly, we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is this in the condition it's now because it was not in service during the war, or?
No, it was. It was just lucky enough to survive the war. It actually had like 4 or 5 victories in battles. It actually managed to sink 2 ships and damage 1 with its torpedoes. So it's actually like a successful warship.
Okay. For its time,
yes.
Was it like?
It was the best. It was like actually one of the best or modern submarines at that time when it was built. But it's also like the submarine technology at that time was like rapidly evolving. So yes, they were built in 1936 and they were like the best submarines in the world. But like few years later, if we would have bought them a few years later, they would have been even more spectacular.
Yeah.
So, but at the time they were really, really good submarines.
When you think of a submarine today,
you
think about like really advanced technology, radar, stuff like that. This, I'm guessing, didn't have much of that.
Well, the main problem with it was that it couldn't stay underwater for too long, since it had diesel engines and electrical engines. So they could use the electrical engines when they were underwater, but they needed charging by the diesel engines, so they had to surface from time to time. And like today, the nuclear submarines, they could stay underwater for like forever. The only reason they have to surface is actually to get like food for the people on board. But, but technically, just the submarine itself, it could stay underwater forever. So so it's 60 meters long and it weighs 600 tons. And actually, when it was brought out of the water to be brought here inside, it held the record as it was the submarine that had been in the water consecutively for the longest time in the world, for 75 years straight, since building and until it was brought out of the water in 2011.
So this was still floating until then?
It was, yeah.
Wow. And now we can actually go inside.
Yes, you can go inside, and almost everything has been like renovated to look like it used to look like when it was built.
Well, maybe that's the next step, to step aboard.
Yeah, let's go. So this is the torpedo room, and there would be the 4 chambers that torpedoes could be loaded in, and could be shot out of the front part of the ship. And the torpedoes were held like under the floor, here under the beds, and as you can see, the beds are everywhere in every room, since the maximum crew size was 32 men. It wasn't always that, but like if it was actually on a mission and in war, then it was up to 32 men, and they had to fit somewhere. And so that's why you can see all the beds everywhere. So you didn't have.
Were it like if you were to sleep here, you were in some way in charge of the torpedo room?
No, you didn't have to be. So they mainly worked in 2 shifts, so there wasn't enough beds for everyone, so they had to be like working 2 different shifts. So some of them slept, and then some of them were working.
So this this is an actual bed.
Yes, yes. Of course, the mattress has been removed, but yes, this would be your bed. I mean, you can see how small it actually is. But I mean, I guess like since working in a submarine wasn't easy, and I think it was pretty tiring, then I don't think that it would make a big difference if it would be longer or like better. You were tired and you wanted to sleep anywhere you can.
Yeah. So this is the front of the ship?
Yes, yeah.
And could you only shoot torpedoes?
Yes, from here. Yeah.
Oh, this is a mattress.
Yes. But
were you like strapped in, or could you just? I
think you could just if you actually didn't like have any accidents, then it wasn't like shaking or anything too much. So I don't think they had to be strapped down to sleep.
Because I mean, just falling off of here.
Yeah, it wouldn't be too good.
Okay.
So this is where the officers. This was the officers' room where they could.
I was just gonna say this is the first class in comparison to.
Basically, yeah. We see at the end of the ship there is like the quarters for the ordinary crew members. But yeah, the officers had their own room where they could spend their free time or make plans or eat. And yes, this is basically the most luxurious part of the submarine.
Yeah.
And coming up is the commander was the only person on board who had their own room. It was small, but they had their own bed, their own sink.
Oh, wow.
And this is the commander's room where they could sleep and maybe do some of their work, but mostly to relax.
This is actually quite... Can I sit down?
Yeah.
This is actually quite spacious.
Well, for a submarine, yes. Since as we saw, where all the other crew members had to sleep, then yes, this was pretty good. But of course, the commander had to have some special place to be.
Yeah. How was the toilet situation otherwise?
Well, we can see one of the toilets is right here. And the other one is at the end of the ship.
Okay.
So there were two toilets, but it wasn't a problem. But when a crew member, let's say, who was working at one part of the ship, wanted to go to the toilet, and they had to here's one of them. Had to move past some higher officers, then they had to salute every single one of them before they got to the toilet, and when they want to go back, they had to do the same again.
So just moving through the ship to be very time-consuming.
So this is the control room where the ship was actually steered, and here's the periscope to see above water, the wheel, and the main part of actually maneuvering with the ship.
So are we under the tower?
No? Yes. So you can see this is the ladder which connects to the tower. So this is where they usually would come in to the ship. There are many actually places where you could leave the ship. Basically, every room has their own emergency exit.
Oh, okay.
Since you never knew when you got hit and you had to leave quickly.
Yeah. More sleeping areas?
More sleeping areas, yes. And this is the kitchen of the submarine.
Oh, okay.
And it is said that the commander was not the most important man on board. It was the cook.
Yeah.
If he messed up the food, everything went bad. If he made great food, then everyone was happy and willing to work. So it is said that cook was even maybe more important than the commander.
But you actually did have a chef on board.
Yes, they had.
Not just pre-made meals, but an actual chef.
Yes, and the meals in a submarine were better than on other military ships.
Oh, okay.
They got better food. They got even they were allowed some alcohol on board. So since the living, conditions weren't as big or roomy as on other ships, then they were compensated by getting better or more food and And here you can see, so these two back there are the electrical engines that were used when the ship was underwater. This was one of the diesel engines, which was used when the ship was on surface. And here we have a hole. This is the place where the second diesel engine used to be, but when the Soviets took the ship over, and after the Second World War, when they didn't need it in active duty, then they took out one of the diesel engines to study it, because as I said, the British were the best at constructing the submarines and the engines, so the Soviets took one engine out to study it, to learn how to make as good engines as the Brits did, but they never put it back. So that's why we have a hole in place of an engine.
But these were two similar?
Yes, yeah.
So this was used to keep momentum on the surface,
but
also to charge
the electrical engines, yeah.
But I mean, electrical engines almost 100 years ago.
Yes.
This was possible during that time.
Yeah. And again, like they couldn't be underwater as long as submarines could be underwater today, but yeah. And so this is the room for the ordinary crew members, where they could like spend their free time or eat whatever they wanted to do, and they had their personal belongings here in these locker type chests. These are like the seaman chests. So you can see the pictures of loved ones, cigarettes, razor blades, playing cards. So
this is where you came during your off time or spare time?
Yeah. And at the end there's the other toilet.
Oh yeah. It seems you have to be a special breed to be working down here.
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
I mean, the environment itself is challenging.
Yeah.
And then to be like in constant fear of being attacked or...
Yes, that's the one thing that I don't like. I could never be like a crew member on a submarine. Like just the fact that I don't know what is going on around me. Of course, we have the radars and other detection like machinery, but I'm here and I'm underwater, deep underwater, and I have no idea what's going on around me. I couldn't do it myself. Yeah.
But during this time, you had no radar system.
No, I'm not like 100% sure. I don't want to like give false information. They most certainly had like some detection systems. Was it radar as we know it today? Maybe not, but there was sonar. There's like
sonar and acoustic.
Yeah, there is a. We went past the room where the one of the crew members were, who like listened around the submarine if they could hear like enemy ships or something else. But so they weren't completely blind when they were underwater.
But you had to rely more on the actual visual spotting.
Well, that was the easiest part. But if you were like using the periscope to look on water, then you would still make yourself a target. It's a small target. It weren't easily spotted, but still, if you were not deep below the surface, then you were a target.
Yeah. So would you try to keep under the surface for as much as possible, or?
Yeah, so that's the thing with the submarines from that time. When we go outside, or maybe if you look back, then the front part of the ship is like it's like in the V shape, like the ships, the usual ships that we know today, and that's because it spent most of its time actually on water, because it couldn't go underwater for too long. The maximum was 24 hours. But usually it was most of its time it was on water. But now the submarines from today, they have like round front parts, front bows. So because they are constantly underwater, and that makes moving underwater easier. But since it was mostly on water, then it had to have like this V-shaped front part, so it could be more easily move on water. It would be tougher to move underwater, but since it was on water the most of the time. Yeah.
So now we are at the far back.
Yeah. So behind here will be the propellers,
Should we start making our way to the...
Yeah, we should.
We don't have to salute as much on the way.
Yes, we have no officers on board today.
see these ones in almost every room. Is this some sort of communication
yes,
system?
so yeah, you wouldn't need any electricity. You would just have like long pipes
like
connecting different rooms.
Today's kids' playgrounds, you see these.
Yeah, exactly. So like for if the doors between like the sections of the submarine weren't always closed, but if they had to be closed, then yeah, you could like communicate with the other crew members in the other rooms through that. So this would be the room for the man who would send and receive radio signals between like ships or the people on the ground to like send messages between them. And if we go further, then the room opposite of the commander's room is the place where the crew member who had to listen their surroundings worked.
But this is where you actually...
Yes, that's where you would steer the actual submarine.
And even, but if you're in, if we call it surface mode, could you stand up on the bridge and steer as well?
Yes, there was another wheel in the tower, so it could be steered from there as well.
Okay. So this is mostly for steering once you're underneath.
Well, yes, but it was still the main like wheel since it was in the control room. So you would have like all the other information and access to the different parts of the ship more easily. So that was the main place where it was steered.
I'm imagining myself now being a crew member.
Yeah.
And the ship has surfaced. Could you actually do what we do now, like go out in the open air?
So this area where we are standing right now could be accessed and could be like actually you could walk on it when it was on the surface. Well, of course you could like. You don't have to be that much out of the water. You could be like lower, but yes, if they weren't like afraid of any attacks incoming and they were on the surface, then yes, it could be outside of the water enough so that you could actually walk here.
I mean, just for the crew to be able to stretch and breathe the fresh air.
Yeah.
But this ship must have been very like feared of from the other forces.
Well, that's the thing with like today as well. Smaller countries who have to defend like their border, their sea border. If they have the money and the resources, they usually go for submarines. Even today, because if you're a small country, you don't have as much resources or ways to defend yourself. If you invest in submarines, then it's always a constant threat to enemy ships, and that was the idea behind these two ships as well. We don't have much money, we have to put it somewhere and make good use of it, so we will buy two submarines, and any enemy who wants to attack us has to know that we have submarines, but they don't know where they are.
Yeah, so I was going to say half the win is just enemies knowing you have a submarine.
Exactly, yeah. And it's great that it is like so big and so heavy and so strong that like visitors could like touch it, feel it. They sometimes hit it and nothing happens. So you could be quite like deliberate how you want to feel it.
It's no paint job that you scratch.
If I see someone who could actually do any damage to the hull, well then they have to receive some prize or something, because I don't see it happening.
Yeah. What was like the main enemy of this submarine?
Mines. Mines. Basically, the Baltic Sea is still full of them. Like there's, I guess, like around 80,000 mines still in the sea. So it was heavily. There were like big minefields in the Baltic Sea. But also, of course, like since submarines at that time couldn't stay underwater for too long.
Okay.
So there were like there were planes, there were smaller boats looking out for the submarines who had to like surface to get air.
Easily spotted from.
Yes. So like again, the one of the seaplanes that's hanging in the air there was one of its missions was to spot submarines.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this fairly small machine in comparison to the big submarine, but this was one of its enemies.
It was.
Spotting submarines.
Yes, these types of seaplanes were used to spot submarines. Not so much when they were used in the Estonian Navy, but since it's a British seaplane, the British used it actually in other, of course, for other reasons or purposes as well, but yes, to spot submarines as well, yeah.
And what would be, because this one, by the looks, don't carry that much weapons, but what would be its next step to actually attack if it were to spot the submarine?
Yes, so it had 2 torpedoes attached to the wings, so like one to each wing. It was the main like way to attack submarines or like enemy ships, but like I have to tell you, this seaplane wasn't really like, it wasn't too fast. So when of course when submarines were on surface, they had like someone on the lookout to look out for enemy planes as well, because they knew that the planes would look out for them. But since the seaplanes at that time were too slow, they like could go up to like 100-120 kilometers per hour. The submarines usually had enough time, like when they saw that the plane was coming, they usually had enough time to get everyone inside and still have time to submerge before the plane actually got to their position. But I mean, they couldn't probably attack them, but they still saw them. They could note their position and still give some information about the locations of the enemy warships.
But worst case scenario for the submarine, this one could actually do some damage with this weapon. Looking at it now, it's like a mosquito attacking a horse.
It could, but it would need like quite good circumstances. They had to be like on top of them maybe when they surfaced and be ready to attack. But it could do serious damage to the submarine.
Are these mines on the other side?
Yes. So these are different mines. There are whole different kinds, shapes, sizes. And most of them have been taken out from the Baltic Sea. So actually they have been used around here.
So which one of these were from the like same time era? Which one of these could potentially sink the Lembit?
Almost all of them, because they are from the pre-Second World War, during Second World War era. Because after the Second World War, the countries weren't deploying minefields that much anymore, so almost all of the mines that have been in the Baltic Sea and still are or have been taken out have been put there during or before Second World War. I mean, here you can see like here are 2 mines of the same type. This one over here and this one over there, but you can see like what happens to a mine. Of course, if a ship hits a mine, then the ship probably sinks, but you can see like what happens to a mine after it has exploded. So these are the same type of mines. One of them has exploded, one of them hasn't.
But one of these would be enough to like sink all of that.
If it would be a direct hit, then probably. The mines were different as well. Like some of them had to be like the ship would have to actually have a contact or a connection with the mine to explode. Some of them used like sounds. So if they like heard that some engine sounds were coming towards them, then they would explode. So, but if a submarine like this would actually straight on hit a mine, direct hit, then it would probably sink.
It's a constant, basically minefield operating in.
Yes, especially in the Baltic Sea.
Imagine knowing that as a crew member, trying to sleep on that tiny bed.
Well, they usually try to take like the routes where the mines had been cleared, but during the war you maybe sometimes need to take a route that you haven't been on before, and yes, that would be really scary.
Well, this was a really cool experience.
And
glad you liked it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.